Here you're making an apology. There are 3 questions that you want to be able to answer. The first is, do we tell the truth? People want the company to tell the truth for 2 reasons. One is it gives them confidence that they know what went wrong. And so that means that they will presumably know what to fix. The other is that they want the company to be a truth-telling company so it can uncover the truth. The second is, on whose behalf are we acting? Is it clear that people understand that we understand that? And the third is, how do our actions benefit those people who trust us? So what is it that we're going to do in the future that's actually going to make people believe that we're going to fix the problem we created? And this is where all those facts matter, because if you've laid that out pretty clearly, then there is in fact a path to describe what it is that you're going to do. And so that action planning part is part of the apology, too, because that gives you confidence that the company actually knows how to get from the current state to the future state, where this kind of thing is not going to happen.
Globalization. What is globalization? I think that it takes on a few different definitions in one sense of the word. Globalization means proliferation of transactions across country. So, one way of thinking about globalization is a way to describe increase international communications, more trade happening between countries and be less self-sufficient in providing goods and services to their people and more companies that have offices in multiple countries, which we call multinationals. So, the source of growth in travel and communication and corporate trade across borders. And this way of thinking about globalization is the continuation of thinking that has been around for a long time, such as when the Europeans went to the Orient to find spices, which was also an example of global trade and communication. Another way to think of globalization, though, is an economic system. It is a system in which countries become integrated in a way that never had been before. In this system, we see a global split in the process between consuming and producing goods. Some countries produce goods, some countries consume goods, and then these countries in different areas of the globe depend on each other in a kind of organic solidarity rather than having an economic system being just inside your country. The system is the way economy in your country functions depends on economy of another country. And in fact, this way of thinking about globalizations represents a new area of economic progress. The past industrialist economy has been a global issue.
The executive director, Dr. Magnus Egerstedt, explores several aspects of robots, such as the basics of the machines, myths and misconceptions, as well as the hopes for, and fears of, the advancement of robot technology. In the video, Dr. Egerstedt mentions that robots used to be about mechanical engineering, but now modern robots involve psychology, because these machines will be working along with humans and thus they need to understand people. The second video, which takes place in Augsburg, Germany, dives into the real meaning of robots and humans working together, as well as the way this interaction will benefit society. The third video, which comes out in mid-July, will focus on the all-robot staffed hotel in Nagasaki, Japan, where Imahara investigates the way robots behave utilizing only artificial intelligence.
Coming up with clever holiday gifts is always a challenge, especially for someone who has everything. However, ways to get creative include gifts that provide experiences, not just things to accumulate. Think of enjoying a craft beer or wine of the mouth, flying a drone or model plane, shushing down the slopes on a customized snowboard, or playing a classic arcade game. You're never too old to play, and even hardworking adults need an excuse to discover their inner child now and then. With that in mind, think games when making your holiday gift list.
The effect of the first difference is, on the one hand, to refine and enlarge the public views, by passing them through the medium of a chosen body of citizens, whose wisdom may best discern the true interests of their country, and whose patriotism and love of justice will be least likely to sacrifice it to temporary or partial considerations.
Under such a regulation, it may well happen that the public voice pronounced by the representatives of the people will be more consonant to the public good than if pronounced by the people themselves, convened for the purpose.
For the first time, Japanese researchers have conducted a real-life experiment that shows how some traffic jams appear for no apparent reason. They placed the 22 vehicles on a single track, and asked the drivers to cruise around at a constant speed of 30 kilometers an hour. At first, traffic moves smoothly, but soon, the distance between cars started to vary and vehicles clumped together at one point on the track, but the jam spread backward around the track, like a shockwave at a rate of about 20 kilometers an hour. Real-life jams move backward at about the same speed.
In animals, a movement is coordinated by a cluster of neurons in the spinal cord called the central contract pattern generator, CPG. This produces signals that drive muscles to contract rhythmically in a way that produces running or walking, depending on the pattern of pulse. A simple signal from the brain instructs the CPG to switch between modes such as going from a standstill to walking.
And now the nation's opioid crisis is putting newborn babies at risk. The use of prescription painkillers like OxyContin by women during pregnancy has resulted in what's being called an explosion of infants as addicted to the drugs as their mothers. Newly published data in JAMA Pediatrics shows the number of cases of neonatal abstinence syndrome has risen five-fold in the U.S. from 2000 to 2012, that's nearly 22,000 affected infants in that last year alone, and the reality behind those stats is heart-wrenching. OxyContin has addicted both infants and mothers, causing cases of neonatal abstinence syndrome rising. The babies, they really suffer, just like adults do when they withdraw from narcotics. Dr. Terry Inder, chair of pediatric newborn medicine at Boston's Brigham and Women's Hospital, told CBS News. The babies are very irritable and sometimes have high heart rates, sweating, flushing, diarrhea. They cry a lot.
If you keep up with the news at all, you know that hacking computer networks of companies, both large and small, means big business. Like any other commodity, personal data and information can be priceless. According to ZDNet, a website that provides 24/7 news coverage of tech trends, 2014 alone saw more than 1 billion personal records illegally accessed, including health, financial, email and home address data, and other personal information like social security numbers. That's up more than 54% from the year prior, according to industry experts, and there's no sign that those numbers will be slowing down anytime soon. Case in point, just this year, more than 191 million US voters' information was compromised from an incorrect configuration in the voter database. Still not convinced? Anthem, one of the world's largest health insurers, was hacked this year, and 80 million US citizens had all of their personal information leaked.
What does capture consumers' attention? A good story. And savvy marketers are exploring new ways to use storytelling to attract and hold consumers' interest and influence their behavior. This is more than a hunch. Science supports the power of emotions and stories to engage an audience. With this mind, Pressboard, an online content marketing platform, believes that stories are the most powerful way for brands to communicate with consumers. When an individual hears, reads, or views a story, for example, it prompts an emotional connection. The brain releases oxytocin, the feel-good hormone associated with, among other things, sex and childbirth, that promotes a feeling of bonding and connection. Psychological research suggests that stories can influence an individual's actions and inspire them to make choices and change behavior in response to a story.
When you first examine something under a microscope, say a leaf from a plant, you're amazed at how much detail there is, and it's detail that you simply cannot see without magnification. And what you can see with the naked eye becomes suddenly huge under the lens. How big everything looks is astonishing, but it's also amazingly intricate. Suddenly it's as if another world has opened up in front of your eyes and you think, hey, I hadn't realized that something so small, so tiny, could be so.
The Chinese were, as far as we know, the inventors of paper money, and because it was so easy to move around compared with coins, it was named flying money. They were also the first to experience an economic problem which has become all too familiar. By the 12th century, there was enough money in circulation to cause serious inflation. In Europe, it wasn't until about 1400 that bankers in Spain and Italy began to honor bills of exchange, which were a kind of private paper money not in general use. They were documents used by those involved in a business transaction in which payment was made through a third party to avoid the cost of foreign exchange. However, it is the Swedes who are generally credited with producing the first proper European bank.
Archery, the practice or art of shooting with a bow and arrow, has played an important part in English history, being the main weapon of the foot soldier and instrumental in winning many battles in wars with the French, with whom we seem to be constantly at war during the Middle Ages. The English favored the longbow over the short bow and the crossbow, the latter being the main firearm of militaries on the European continent. The crossbow fired a metal bolt released by a trigger, rather like a gun, and had the longest range of any of the bows, but the main advantage of the longbow was its accuracy. The importance placed in archery is illustrated by the fact that medieval kings in England encouraged the practice, and one of them, Edward Ill, went so far as to ban all sports on Sundays and holidays except archery, because there were no standing armies in those days, and in the event of war rulers had to call on the populace, everything was done to make sure there were large numbers of competent, if not expert archers, to recruit. Archery, the practice or art of shooting with a bow and arrow, has played an important part in English history, being the main weapon of the foot soldier and instrumental in winning many battles in wars with the French, with whom we seem to be constantly at war during the Middle Ages. The English favored the longbow over the short bow and the crossbow, the latter being the main firearm of militaries on the European continent. The crossbow fired a metal bolt released by a trigger, rather like a gun, and had the longest range of any of the bows, but the main advantage of the longbow was its accuracy. The importance placed in archery is illustrated by the fact that medieval kings in England encouraged the practice, and one of them, Edward Ill, went so far as to ban all sports on Sundays and holidays except archery, because there were no standing armies in those days, and in the event of war rulers had to call on the populace, everything was done to make sure there were large numbers of competent, if not expert archers, to recruit.
In a study conducted in Tübingen, Germany, chess experts and novices were shown geometric objects and chess positions and were later asked to identify each one of them. Their reaction times and brain activity closely monitored with the use of functional MRI scans. On the first part, which was recognizing the geometric objects, results revealed that the subject's performance didn't show any dissimilarities, which implied that the expert's visualization skill are no better than the amateurs. However, during the identification of the chess position, the experts were seen to have performed significantly faster and better. As the researchers geared toward an element of a study previously conducted on the pattern and object recognition by the chess experts, they had anticipated noticing areas of the left hemisphere of the experts' brains, involved in object recognition, to be more reactive when they performed the tasks. In a study conducted in Tübingen, Germany, chess experts and novices were shown geometric objects and chess positions and were later asked to identify each one of them. Their reaction times and brain activity closely monitored with the use of functional MRI scans. On the first part, which was recognizing the geometric objects, results revealed that the subject's performance didn't show any dissimilarities, which implied that the expert's visualization skill are no better than the amateurs. However, during the identification of the chess position, the experts were seen to have performed significantly faster and better. As the researchers geared toward an element of a study previously conducted on the pattern and object recognition by the chess experts, they had anticipated noticing areas of the left hemisphere of the experts' brains, involved in object recognition, to be more reactive when they performed the tasks.
The teacher asked the group to commence the task. the teacher asked the group to commence the task.
Education and training provide important skills for the labor force. Education and training provide important skills for the labor force.
Universities across the United Kingdom welcome a range of students. Universities across the United Kingdom welcome a range of students.
If you like our video, kindly subscribe our channel and also press below bell icon. Thank you.